Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Connected by Design webinar. Today's session is about Agile multi-cloud and site connectivity with Lumen Network as a Service. This is an introduction to Lumen's Network as a Service platform, how it enables private connectivity to clouds, data centers, and other site types. We'll show you the platform, how you can quickly create connections, enable elastic bandwidth, and gain full control of your network. The presentation and live demo will be about 30 to 45 minutes. We'll save 10 to 15 minutes for questions, so drop them in the chat along the way, and we'll review as many as possible during the question and answer session. Thank you for joining us today, and let's get started. Let's start with introductions. My name is Nick Casale, Senior Director of Specialized Sales here at Lumen. I'm joined by Greg Horn, one of Lumen's principal technical architects. And in today's session, we'll cover the basics of NaaS. This includes cloud and site connectivity, and we'll discuss advantages of private site connectivity using Lumen's Network as a Service. Next, Greg will show us a live demo of how to build these connections in the Lumen NaaS portal. After the demo, we'll highlight some use case examples of how NaaS cloud and site connectivity can overcome challenges and deliver business results. We'll save 10 to 15 minutes for questions, so be sure to drop them in the chat along the way. Network as a service is becoming very popular and growing in adoption. So why is that? Mainly three reasons. IT teams are driving the demand. 90% of them plan to adopt NaaS technologies within the next 3 years. This is not a niche play anymore. This is becoming a mainstream play. The expansion of AI workloads is another reason. The shift to hybrid cloud models and continuous growth of edge deployments. And then lastly, NaaS offers the speed, security, scalability, and digital control over the network that traditional networks just cannot provide. So, what is network as a service and cloud and site connectivity? Simply put, it's the cloudification of network services that simplifies connectivity to the cloud, data centers, and other sites. Think of it as moving network services into a fully digital, on-demand, flexible model. With network as a service, connectivity is on demand, where compute and application services are easily accessible as cloud-like services. Connectivity is private and secure, backed by Lumen's Black Lotus Labs cyber intelligence. NaaS delivers high-performance, low-latency connections for the most demanding workloads. NaaS is deployable in minutes, not weeks or months, accelerating time to market. NaaS offers usage-based billing similar to how you pay for and consume for your cloud, compute, and storage services today, offering a very cost-efficient model. I'm going to pass it over to Greg now to go into a couple more details and show the demo.
Thank you, Nick. So the Lumen NaaS port is your gateway to the next-gen business that makes it possible to provide multiple services over a single port. So these multiple services are going to be Internet, Ethernet, and security. In this example and what we're looking at, we're going to concentrate on the Ethernet portion of this. And so the NaaS port allows you to connect multiple point-to-point connections using Ethernet on demand service that can connect one of your data centers to other data centers, as well as to multiple cloud service providers. These operate from a site level perspective. So for those customers who want a site to communicate with other sites, or that site to communicate directly with a cloud, they would spin up this service at layer 2 with speeds up to 30 gig for site-to-site services, and then varying speeds depending on the cloud service provider that we're integrated with. We are currently integrated with all major cloud service providers like AWS, Google, Azure, and Oracle. And then we also have connections into the Equinix data centers, Flexential data centers, and Digital Realty. The classes of service are available for EVCs to allow customers competing for other customer traffic and prioritizing one EVC over the other. It's easily managed to be able to spin up and down via the Lumen portal and also using our APIs. We also have a layer 3 component for this. So for those customers who are not wanting to connect a point-to-point, or for situations where you have sites that you don't want to be site dependent, that to get to a cloud service provider, you don't want it to go through a data center or headquarter location. In those situations where you want all sites to have equal access to your cloud resources, we offer this IPVPN on demand, which allows customers to spin up these dynamic connections from their VRF containing all sites within that service that will get access to the cloud service providers. This is also very useful for customers who have multiple cloud service providers. This allows you to just bring in all the cloud service providers into a single VRF, or via the portal, you can connect cloud service provider to another cloud service provider for syncing data, for migration of data, and you can spin up your own VRF on your own to keep that isolated from your corporate or production environments. So the speeds that allow for IPVPN on demand from the VRF to the cloud service provider can reach up to 10 gig. And they also are directly connected to the major cloud service providers like AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, in the form of private and government clouds, and also all the Oracle data centers. So now we're going to give a demonstration using the Ethernet on demand and look at IPVPN on demand. We're going to go directly into the production live portal and see how to spin these up. So we're currently looking at the control center, which is the interface that our customers use to spin up these services. And we will start with Ethernet on demand. So I simply go to the flyout on the services option on the left-hand side of the portal, and I can just say add Ethernet on demand connection. So the first thing I do is I select the appropriate customer ID. If you have multiple, just pick the one that you want. And then we give a nickname for the connection we're building, something relevant to my organization so that everybody knows what this connection is for. This could be internal circuit IDs, descriptions, just something so that everyone else knows what to expect when they're looking at inventory. And then the next thing I do is I select a port location. So these are going to be all those NaaS-enabled ports, which again is that gateway to our business services that allows the multiple connections over a single port. And we just split those with VLANs. So I will select my port first, and then I will select the VLAN that I want this to use. And so each one of these ports are dedicated to a customer. So every single VLAN on this port would be familiar to the customer of choice. So there shouldn't be anything unexpected here. These are going to be your own VLANs, so there should be nothing surprising here. This does do a real-time check to make sure that that VLAN is actually available. And if it is not, it will say it's not available and show you a list of VLANs that are. Since this one is available, it gives me the green checkpoint. So next I will connect to another site. And so again, I just select the uni. So this is the NaaS port, and this is connecting a site to another site. And so I will put in the same VLAN that connects these two locations, and it will give me the green check as well, saying this VLAN is also available on this port. And then we can look at our bandwidth options. So when we look at our bandwidth options, we have a monthly option and an hourly option. So if we know that there would be a situation where I only need this temporarily, and the idea of this NaaS type of port is to use bandwidth when you want it at the speed you need it at that moment. If you know you have a project that will only last 2 weeks and you just need these sites connected at a gig for that period of time, then it would make more sense to use the hourly rate. And so then I can select a gig, and then we have our hourly rate of $4.41 an hour. Now you can see this says up to 240 hours, which just really means that after 10 days, we don't want our customers to get caught with these exorbitant rates if they were to accidentally leave it up, or to leave it up for an extended period of time where you would end up paying more than if you just committed to the month. So what we do is we change the rate after that 10 days to ensure that we never exceed the MRC amount if you were to select a monthly option. So I will move back to the monthly option and just go ahead and select the gig rate, which is 1,085. Now, as I mentioned before, we do have class of service options. So if we have customers who want to establish multiple EVCs, and they might even want to exceed the actual bandwidth rate. So if you have a gig uni and you have 3 different EVCs, you could set all those to a gig E to allow each one of those EVCs to get full rate values. Now, in times of congestion, if they're all trying to use that gig E bandwidth at the same time, that's where you can use these class of services to determine the ones that are the most important. And if you're in dedicated, which is the highest level, then all traffic within that EVC will always get through. Enhanced will get through over basic, but will not step on dedicated. And then your basic would be the last one to get through during those times of congestion. I'm going to go back then and change my service. Instead of connecting to another location, I want to connect to a cloud service provider. And so in this case, I'm going to use AWS as an example. So you can see that all the cloud service providers and partners that we have connectivity to for Ethernet on demand are listed here. So I would just simply select the one that's most appropriate for me. Now this does require a account ID for AWS. They all have the same concept but are slightly different. Azure has express route keys, Google has Google pairing keys, and then Oracle has Oracle IDs as well. So you would have to generate that from the cloud service provider. And once you have your key, you can put it in the Lumen portal and it will validate that this is acceptable for you to use. And then the next thing is to select the on-ramp. So that's another value add with the Lumen digital services, is that once you have that physical connectivity into the Lumen network in the form of that NaaS port, no other physical connectivity is required. All of these on-ramps are connections between the Lumen network and the cloud service providers, and our customers have access to every one of those, and they just simply choose the one that's closest to their workloads. Or if they're building resiliency, you could have multiple NaaS ports that connect to multiple different on-ramps going to those same availability zones. Each one of our availability zones, we have multiple connection points and on-ramps into that for the resiliency that customers can build within this portal. In this example, I will just use the Los Angeles. So US West is a 100 gig on-ramp to AWS. So then when I select that, I can continue forward. And then this brings me to the exact same bandwidth selection that we saw on the point-to-point. Now these increments are going to vary because not all cloud service providers offer the same increments that Lumen does, just going between locations. And they also don't always necessarily offer the same increments between each other. So each one, depending on the cloud service provider you select, will have their own increments. And then we just match those because it wouldn't make sense to choose an increment on Lumen that the cloud service provider doesn't operate at. So in this particular instance, we have a 100 gig uni and AWS offers up to 25 gig. So these are all of our increments that we can choose. And then also, just like the site-to-site model, you have class of service options where you can choose the level of priority within each one of those EVCs. And finally, we will connect a IPVPN on demand. And so this one works very similar, except for instead of that site to cloud service provider that we mentioned with Ethernet on demand, this would be connecting every one of your locations within a VRF or routing instance into that particular cloud resources. So we would also nickname this something that is relevant to our organization. And then all the VRFs that the customer participates in would be listed in this section here. If there was a scenario where you wanted to connect a cloud service provider to a different cloud service provider, but you didn't want them to participate in your production environment, then you can always create your own VRF that is separate and isolated for that particular purpose. For this demonstration, we will choose a VRF that is active and part of my network. And so the same kind of process is using the keys that are specific to that cloud service provider. And then again, you can select your on ramp. So in this case, I'll just pick Chicago just to vary a little bit. And then from here, sorry, I forgot to pick a ban. So you do have to have a ban for this connection. And I will hit continue, and then we're back to the increments that we need to choose. Now this one, instead of going from a site location to the cloud service provider, this is the entire network connecting from Lumen, in this case to Amazon, and these are the increments that we can exchange data into that VRF itself. Okay, so now that we have seen the demonstration and we know the power of this tool and the GUI, the interface that we allow, this gives customers access to, in a dynamic fashion, to our expansive edge to cloud infrastructure. And it's also underpinned by the expansive global network and fiber routes that Lumen continues to invest in. We currently have 340,000 global fiber routes, and we will have over 47 million routes by the end of 2028. And we're also continuing to expand our on-net footprint. So what this means to our customer base is that instead of you having to come to us to get to these on-ramps and services, we have and will have and continue to invest 200,000 lit buildings where we will bring our services to you, and we continue to expand our reach closer and closer to the edge. All of this is built on an API-first infrastructure, enabling real-time provisioning and flexible interfaces through the Lumen NaaS portal and manager. And then these APIs we make and offer directly to the customer to bypass that control center, so that network automation can come into play and be reactive for changes in condition on the WAN to make changes on your actual circuits and implementation using the Lumen digital services. We also have security that's built in from the ground up with a private layer 2 connection and layer 3 networking and intelligence from our Black Lotus Labs, which is a research facility that monitors activity on the network and responds accordingly at the core level of Lumen's backbone. And then we're also optimized for multi-cloud data center and on-prem environments, distributed environments, and you can also flex your network on demand for seamless workload migration and superior application performance. Nick, I will turn this back over to you.
Okay, so a little bit of a busy slide, so I'm going to summarize here. So we've come up with 4 main use cases for cloud site connectivity, and those are SaaS migration, cloud migration, departmental cloud requirements that may differ, and acquisition inorganic growth. So I'll kind of run through these a little bit. So the first one, SaaS migration. This is where your provider, your cloud provider, may convert from on-prem to cloud, forcing the need for cloud connectivity. So Lumen's network as a service allows you to extend your existing network right to that cloud using that same type of interface and technology that Greg just showed you. It's very, very simple. The result is secure, efficient access to those SaaS applications without a complete network overhaul. Cloud migration, firms may need to migrate to a hyperscaler that they may not be connected to today. So again, using that interface that Greg showed us, we're able to quickly, securely provision those connections with low latency over a layer 2 or a layer 3 architecture to dynamically scale your network needs. Departmental cloud requirements. This is where you may have multiple groups within your firm that connect to various CSPs. So as you see, when Greg went through the portal, there's multiple opportunities, multiple on-ramps that you can connect to, even using that same port. So Lumen NaaS provides the ability to quickly connect to these multiple CSPs using that NaaS port. And this again allows for that quick continuation using your existing network to capitalize on those network investments that you've already made. And then with inorganic growth, acquisition, kind of like the M&A play, companies that may be acquired could introduce a new CSP to the mix. Again, the way we built NaaS allows you to quickly adapt to that environment and build those secure connections where it kind of increases your agility and allows for quick integration to continue existing business and facilitate new business. Okay, thanks to everyone for joining us today. We hope this session has clarified what NaaS cloud and site connectivity is, and most importantly, how Lumen NaaS empowers you to truly take control of your network. With Lumen NaaS, you gain fast, easy, and secure on-demand connectivity that's perfectly aligned with the agility your business needs for today's dynamic cloud, AI, and edge environments. It's about having your network your way, adapting seamlessly to your demands, optimizing costs, and ensuring your data and applications are always powered. Thank you for joining us today. To learn more or talk about your unique needs, you can always visit us online at www.lumen.com or connect with your Lumen representative. We'll also be following up with each of you after the session to answer any questions and help you take the next step. Let's move over to the question and answers.
All right, we have a few questions that have come in, but before we get to answering those questions, we actually have a few questions of our own for you. If you could take a few minutes and fill out the poll, that would be outstanding. And why don't we start getting into the questions? So the first question that we have, how does Lumen NaaS support multi-cloud environments, and what are the technical advantages of using private layer 2 and layer 3 connectivity options? Greg, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I'll take that. So really the advantages of using private is that you wouldn't have to use the internet. So the internet, for one, can vary in performance. It can be under attack, right? So in order for your services to remain more consistent and secure, having a private connectivity is a lot better user experience. And then just the way that we would implement that from a multi-cloud perspective is we have several ways to connect. One of them being a layer 2 option, which is just taking a point-to-point service from a site straight into a cloud service provider without using the internet, all private connectivity. And so that option is good for site-specific kind of communications. But then we also have a layer 3 option for cloud connectivity, which that one is more geared towards if you have a network that's trying to use cloud resources as opposed to a site, then you can connect all of them equally to those resources using the layer 3 connection. And again, using this multi-cloud concept where you would have a private network for your own use within the company, like a production environment, and then that would communicate directly with a cloud service provider without using your own facilities, using Lumens exclusively.
One of the other things that I'll mention is that Lumen NaaS is unique in the respect that we can do cloud-to-cloud connections very, very quickly and very easily without hairpinning through a data center or through your own facility, for instance. So if you need to sync data between different cloud workloads, it's really easy to set up, and it is really easy to use for the length of time that you need it, without having to invest in a permanent connection like a wave or anything like that.
Yeah, so we have another question here that I'll move to. What are the key drivers behind the rise of network as a service, and how does it address the limitations of traditional network management? So I think off the bat, my thoughts on that one would be any kind of traditional networking, you always had to buy for whatever your peak needs would be, and then you would pay for that 365 days a year. Where when you use NaaS, you just pay for what you need when you need. So if you only need 500 meg most of the time, then that's what you pay for. And then those 2 or 3 times of peak performance where you might need higher than 500 megs, a gig or 5 gig, then you would just turn up the service for those moments. Mark, do you have anything else to add to that one?
Yeah, I'll definitely add. So, there are a couple of different scenarios where people need variability, and it might not be rapid changing of bandwidth on a daily or weekly basis. It may actually be a situation where customers just want the control to be able to have a connection for a period of time and then turn it off. Maybe it's a branch office or an office that they might be shutting down in the near future, or it may be growing, right? So there are lots of reasons why customers are really adopting NaaS versus traditional services where they have a long term. The other thing that I would say is again, it's traditional services, right? So it is internet service like DIA, it is Ethernet services, so it's the same network. It really is just the ability to be able to control. And a lot of customers have enjoyed the fact that they can control turning on and off services, whether it's server workloads or storage, what have you. And having network that you can control, you can turn up, turn down, turn off, is something that really resonates with a lot of IT managers today. All right. We had another one that came in actually close to the start of the session. Where is this available? So today for Lumen, most network as a service services are available in North America, predominantly in the United States, some in Canada. However, we do have cloud on-ramps in Asia Pacific and some other locations. Greg, anything to add for that?
That is definitely where we are today. I would definitely encourage everyone to check back because, as you mentioned, the Asia Pac, for example, Lumen has underground or underlying core network in Asia Pacific, and so I can see us expanding these services there. Also, in the future, we are looking for various partners in different parts of the world that you could use a single interface and spin up either user network interfaces or connections to those providers. So I would always say check back as we're ever expanding this product set.
All right. The next one is, what are the technical requirements for implementing Lumen NaaS? Greg, I think that's up your alley.
Yeah, one thing that you just mentioned on the one of the questions before is, it's the same network and architecture of traditional networking, right? So really the gear and everything we expect from the customer is going to look identical. It's going to look very similar. It's just a different way of provisioning those services using the WAN. Now, one thing that is specific to NaaS is just that capability of stacking different services on top of the same port. So the way that we do that is by using VLANs. And so, one technical requirement for using the service is to connect it to a switch or a router that supports VLANs, as most gear in telecom does. So it would really just be a skill set requirement more than a technical requirement. But that's how we differentiate our services and allow multiple services to go over the same port.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, today we support up to 50 services per port, again, across multiple VLANs. But we are always expanding the capabilities of Lumen NaaS. And so, if there's a capability that you need, a feature that you want, please reach out to your Lumen rep. They'll reach out to Greg's team or my team, and we are constantly adding to the capabilities or addressing any technical limitations that there might be. So the next question is, what are some real world use cases for Lumen NaaS, and how does it help businesses with SaaS migration, cloud migration, or departmental cloud requirements?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, because so many people are moving to the cloud and have a lot of cloud resources and have multiple cloud resources. So, having the ability to either go to a hybrid model or a completely 100%, cloud model, you have to migrate those services, and you need direct connectivity, private connectivity to do so. So if you're just migrating everything to the cloud, then this is a perfect situation just to use that for when you need it. Once again, just to transfer those services and workloads um, to the appropriate cloud partner. And then if you're moving to like hybrid, which is what the majority of our customers do, is you're really keeping a physical presence, keeping a physical data center. You're just complementing that with a cloud service provider. And so there's constant need to either sync data or migrate data, or just, in times of need, have more CPU resources or storage components that you need for a temporary basis. And this allows you to sync those up. And then I think finally, I would just kind of say what you mentioned earlier. In the case of having multiple cloud service providers, a lot of times you need to migrate or sync data between those cloud service providers. And so this is a great opportunity to have that direct connectivity between those resources without using of any of your own assets. This would use 100% Lumen cloud-based assets to make those migration and syncing efforts.
Yeah, I'll add that I've worked with a customer where they had their storefront on one cloud provider, but they had their deep analytics on another cloud provider. So periodically, about once a week, they would spin up an Ethernet on demand session between the, IPVPN on demand session between the two cloud providers, move data between the two, and then tear it down. Very, very cost effective. This customer absolutely loved the fact that they could do that kind of connection for the period of time that they needed, and then tear it down, so it's not costing them continuously throughout the month, throughout the year, what have you. So cloud to cloud connectivity is fantastic, and that can be for steady state business. It can be for intermittent things, or it can be one-offs like, database moves, DR events, just changing your business from one provider to another provider. So it is very, very useful. Next question. Can you provide an overview of Lumen NaaS Manager and APIs and how they facilitate real-time provisioning and flexible interfaces? And this coincides with another question that came in about automation and the ability to automatically adjust based on billing or based on events. So, Greg, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So in the demonstration for this video, it was me logging in and showing the GUI interface. So that's always an option for a customer to do, is to just log in and make changes as they see fit. But we have customers who have dashboards, and they don't want to use the GUI necessarily, or they want to present this data in a way that's different from not having someone authenticate and have access to their portals. They want to represent this in a different way to even their own users and employees. So everything that we build in that portal is an API endpoint. And so the portal itself is just HTML front end to those API endpoints. Now we make those APIs directly available to our customers so that they can authenticate themselves using client IDs and bearer tokens, just like you would with any other provider. And then that allows you to bypass the GUI itself and directly have your machine talk to our machine, so that if there are business changes or changes in conditions of the network, then your system can automate and make those either new services can be deployed using system automation, or like I say, if there's an event that's coming up and it's coming up, you can use that system to push those bandwidth upgrades to the network just for the event. or even respond if you see spikes in activity on your particular link. If it reaches thresholds of 80 or 90%, then you can have your API push that bandwidth upgrade to the next increment until that spike goes down. So it's just ways for the network operators to not have to have a person monitoring this in hands and boxes at all times. Just have the network see these functions and respond the way you pre-program them to.
Yeah, and if you are interested in learning more about Lumen's APIs, you can go to developer.lumen.com. It is where we publish all of our APIs. You can go in there, look at reference material, including all of the NaaS APIs. So we are an API first kind of company. We publish a lot of APIs for a lot of the services that we do have. And then to answer the question a little bit more from I guess more of a real world standpoint, we today have a number of customers and a couple of partners that have actually used these API calls to tool out their specific business requirements. We have a customer that I know quite well that turns up and down services on a daily basis, and on the weekends, they turn it up full bore because they have a lot of events going on and whatnot. We work with a number of people that are doing things that are event based, as well as others that are setting up their automation and they're doing it based on calendar events, where based on whether it's an all hands meeting that's in a particular office, or maybe a large webinar where you're going to need to consume a lot of bandwidth, they can set up their automation framework to be able to make calls into the Lumen APIs, modify that bandwidth for that length of time, and then ramp it back down to save in cost. So it is very, very flexible, and it is something that is in use in a number of different situations, really across our customer base today. All right, and then there's a question about how do we mitigate failure of a single uni? And so that really, I think, more begs the question about the underlying network where we're deploying these services. Greg, do you want to talk a little bit about Lumen's Metro Ethernet architecture?
Yeah, so the single uni for our on-net facilities, we build rings that use our metro fiber, and the ring topology then goes like an east-south kind of direction back to our gateways, and then within our gateways themselves, we have at least dual switches to accommodate those rings so that we can withstand failures. Another thing that's important is, this is technology and we expect it to break because technology always breaks. So it's really just a matter of how do you account for that when it does break? And so we capacity manage our rings at 50%, just so that way when one side of the ring goes down, all traffic can go around the other without losing that any of our customer traffic. So, and then it also, like a lot of times that's just not good enough, right? Customers need some kind of guarantee, or even they need an uptime that's bigger than that. And that's actually what my team works on quite a bit, is getting 2 unis. And so a lot of times we can just put 2 different chassis on a ring, and that way we can withstand a chassis failure. But then other times customers, they want us to, and one of my favorite designs is to use a ring that is your primary access that goes to your localized gateway, and then couple that with like a wavelength or some kind of different technology so that you can be specific and customize a design that avoids that ring and gateway in its entirety and just take it somewhere else. And so that way we could lose the ring, we can lose the gateway, and these services still remain up.
Yeah, very well said. And the big thing that I would say is every case is probably a little bit unique based on your location, based on the network, and your specific requirements. And Lumen really is here across the board, from our sales executives to our SEs to technologists like Greg, to help understand those requirements and architect a solution that works specifically for you. So please do engage us. Call your Lumen rep. They'll engage Greg and his peers, or me and my peers, and we'll come up with something that works really well for you. And at this point, I don't see any additional questions. Greg, any closing comments?
No, I just appreciate everybody's time today, and hopefully we've got some interest out there, and people want to know more. And like Mark said, we're available to answer any questions and look at your specific needs. And like the uptime that somebody just said, somebody's got a number of nines they need to achieve, and we help customers achieve that in any way we can. So yeah, we'll work with you on your specific goals and show you, not just tell you how we're going to do it, but we'll show you the way that we're going to achieve those goals.
All right. And thank you for your time. If you haven't filled out the poll question, if you could do so before you drop, that would be greatly appreciated. And we look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you.
And thanks, everybody.